The autumn air in Virginia had grown sharp and restless, sweeping through the trees like whispered secrets. The leaves danced with fading life, their fiery colors painting the sidewalks in reds and golds. Inside a modest two-story home tucked between sleepy suburban lanes, Maya Evans sat curled on her couch, a knitted blanket drawn around her shoulders. Her back ached, a dull, persistent throb that reminded her of the accident that had flipped her life upside down. A slip during a hiking trip, a tumble down a rocky hill, and in a matter of seconds, everything had changed. Now, her days were filled with stretches, ice packs, and long hours of quiet loneliness. But there was one bright spot in all of it: Dr. Elias Reid, her physiotherapist. He was a man who carried his calm like armor, soft-spoken but firm, always professional, yet with something smoldering beneath his steady demeanor. From the very first session, Maya noticed it, the way his eyes lingered on her a moment too long, the way his hands were gentle but commanding when they guided her through stretches. Elias was in his mid-30s, tall, broad-shouldered, with midnight hair that curled slightly when damp and a voice like warm honey. He never crossed the line, never said anything that could be mistaken for flirtation, but Maya felt it in her gut. He saw her, not just as a patient, but as a woman. The therapy sessions had become the rhythm of her week. Twice a week, he'd arrive at her home, his leather satchel slung over his shoulder, his scent crisp with cedar and citrus. The sessions began with stretches, light massage therapy, and strengthening exercises. At first, they spoke only about the injury. But soon, conversation turned to books, films, the small joys of life. She found herself laughing more, waiting eagerly for his next visit. She would catch him watching her sometimes, quiet, contemplative stares that he quickly masked with a polite smile. One day, as he gently manipulated her spine with precise care, Maya's breath caught in her throat. His hand brushed her waist, and she shivered. Their eyes met. For a moment, the world fell away. But then he stepped back, cleared his throat, and returned to his notes, as if nothing had happened. That night, she lay in bed, unable to sleep, her body humming with something unspoken. Was it just her imagination? Or was Elias holding something back too? Days turned into weeks. The boundary between therapist and friend began to blur. He started staying a few minutes longer after sessions, helping her clean up or sharing a coffee. He even brought her a book once, an old hardcover copy of The Secret Garden, saying it reminded him of her strength and solitude. That gift stayed on her nightstand, unopened but cherished. He was gentle, respectful, always so careful. But there was a storm in his eyes, something restrained, as if he was fighting a war within himself. One Thursday evening, after a particularly long session, Maya walked him to the door. The sky was dark, the wind sharp. As he turned to leave, he paused. "Maya," he said, his voice low, "you're healing faster than most patients I've worked with. You've got an incredible resilience." She smiled, thanking him, but before she could say more, he nodded quickly and stepped into the night. Her fingers lingered on the door after it shut, wishing she had asked him to stay a while longer. That night, the air felt different, heavier. She couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. The digital clock blinked 12:03 a.m. She rolled over, hugging her pillow. And then a knock. Soft, hesitant, but real. Her heart jumped. No one knocked at midnight. She tiptoed downstairs, cautious, her heart thudding against her ribs. She peeked through the peephole, and there he was, Dr. Elias Reid, drenched from the rain, his jacket clinging to his broad shoulders, eyes shadowed by something unreadable. She opened the door, shocked. "Elias," she breathed, What are you doing here?" "I shouldn't be," he said, stepping inside. Rain dripped from his hair, his hands trembling slightly. "But I couldn't stay away. Not tonight." For a long moment, neither spoke. The tension that had brewed for weeks finally broke free, swirling around them like the storm outside. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "I've wanted to tell you," he murmured. "Every session, every time I saw you smile, I wanted to say something." Maya swallowed hard. Then say it. Instead, he kissed her. It was soft at first, a question more than an answer. Her hands moved to his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart. The kiss deepened. She pulled him close, and he didn't resist. They moved together through the living room, the storm outside forgotten. There were no more lines to cross. They had already stepped over the edge. He held her like she was something precious. His hands mapped her skin with reverence, his lips trailing devotion along her collarbone. The world narrowed to the warmth of his embrace, the safety of his arms. They whispered to each other, about dreams, about fears, about nights they wished would never end. When they finally collapsed into her bed, limbs entwined, Maya felt a peace she hadn't known in months. And before sleep took them, Elias whispered something strange into the hollow of her neck. "If anything happens, I never meant to hurt you." Maya blinked. "What do you mean?" But he didn't answer. He only kissed her again, slower this time, as if saying goodbye. Maya didn't know how long they had been wrapped in each other's arms before sleep pulled her under. It was a dreamless sleep, warm and deep, her body still tingling from the way Elias had touched her, the way he had looked at her, not like a patient, not even like a lover, but like someone he'd been searching for in a world full of strangers. But when her eyes opened again, the first light of dawn hadn't yet broken through the windows. It was still dark. The wind had calmed, but the silence now was even louder than the storm. Elias lay beside her, one arm draped around her waist. She stared at his face in the pale light filtering through the curtains, his brow, relaxed in sleep, the faint scar near his temple, his dark lashes resting against his cheeks. She reached up and traced his jaw with the back of her fingers. What was he doing here, really? He had always been so careful, so composed. Why now? Why tonight? As if sensing her gaze, Elias stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He didn't speak at first, just looked at her with a softness that made her breath catch. Then, he kissed her forehead gently and murmured, "I shouldn't have come, but I couldn't stop myself." "You say that like it was a mistake," she whispered, searching his eyes. He sighed, resting his forehead against hers. "It wasn't, but there are things you don't know. Things I haven't told you." "Then tell me." He hesitated. His fingers brushed her cheek, and his voice lowered. "I will. Just not tonight." She should have pressed him, demanded answers. But in that moment, she didn't want the spell broken. Whatever shadows followed him, they hadn't come through her door yet. She closed her eyes and let herself melt into him again. They stayed in bed until the first streaks of morning painted the walls. He traced shapes on her back, told her stories about his childhood, growing up in Michigan, wanting to be a doctor ever since his mother passed away, how he'd left everything behind to start again in Virginia. She talked about her old job in publishing, the accident that changed her life, and how, after everything, he had been the one constant in her recovery. "I never let myself get close to patients," he said quietly. "But you made it impossible not to." She smiled into his chest. "Then stay. Stay with me a little longer." And for a while he did. The day bled into a lazy morning. Maya brewed coffee while Elias showered. It felt oddly domestic, like they had done this 100 times before. When he came out, dressed in the same black shirt from the night before, she caught him watching her with something unreadable in his expression. "I can't stay much longer," he said, brushing damp hair from his eyes. "There are things I need to handle." "You sound like you're going off to war," she teased. But he didn't smile. Instead, he stepped toward her, cupped her face, and kissed her deeply. "Whatever happens, remember last night. Remember how real it was." Maya frowned. "Elias, what's going on?" "I'll come back tonight," he promised. "I swear." But he didn't. The rest of the day passed in a fog. Maya tried to distract herself with cleaning, reading, scrolling through her phone. She even checked the door twice, expecting to see him standing there again. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned indigo, dread began to claw at her chest. She called his phone. No answer. She texted. Nothing. By midnight, she was pacing the living room. By 2 in the morning, she was outside on the porch, staring into the darkness. Something was wrong. The next morning, Maya woke to the sound of a siren in the distance. She had finally drifted into an uneasy sleep on the couch. She rubbed her eyes, heart racing, and turned on the TV to fill the silence. The news anchor's voice was somber. Breaking, a body has been found in a wooded area just outside Arlington. Authorities have not released a name but have confirmed the death is being treated as suspicious. More to follow. Maya's breath hitched. She grabbed her phone again. Still no word from Elias. Her gut twisted. Something wasn't right. By noon, there was a knock at her door. This time it wasn't Elias. It was a tall man in a gray suit, badge clipped to his belt, expression grim. "Miss Maya Evans?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "I'm Detective Holbrook with the Arlington PD. May I come in? We need to talk about the man you spent the night with, because he might not be who you think he is."